As Heaven Reach approaches, I thought this was the perfect timing to compile all my best theories for 2.8 and 3.0. This video will be very lore heavy, so spoiler alert if you haven't played through It's a Land yet. And also, since the lore is crazy, I'll be using my own special measurement system today, the Delometer, that shall indicate to you my confidence level on each theory. But before we start, tiny reminder that Update 2.8 Chinese livestream should be over the next few days. I will schedule it on my YouTube livestream tab with the exact time and date if you want to join me. I always stream on Twitch and YouTube at the same time. I will probably post this video right at the same day that they announce it, so I'll also link that down below on the pinned comments, and then you can already check out the time that they are going to stream. So today we'll talk about Heaven's Reach and what it will look like, Wilhelm, Titan King, Muffis and the Saintess, the Infinity Nikki timeline and what I believe is their goal to fix the 1.5 mass, Threads of Reunion, underwater maps, and finally 3.0 and where we are going next. This video is a continuation of my previous theory video, which I posted months ago before 2.5 was released. I'll link that down below as I do recommend you watch that first, but as a quick recap, in that video I have talked about how the Parksolians were a hybrid, not dragons, and not direct children of Acheros, and that the Docilist's goal was to get out of the reincarnation cycle. All of that 100% correct, as we've learned now in 2.5. I also guess the outfits could be somewhat inspired in the Mothershroom and Acheros himself, although the actual outfit story is not about them. I think the visual elements are. I also guessed what the Boneyard would look like and the Giant Tree City, which are both now confirmed, as well as several other Boneyard related details that were already confirmed in these two quests as well. But since Heaven's Reach was pushed to 2.8 instead, we still have some theories that I want to talk about that I have mentioned on the first video, and I want to add some new pieces of information that we've learned in the past 3 updates. For example, the Chained Dragon, time traveling and the vase, Muffis, and my favorite topic, underwater maps. There are 2 theories that I'm not going to talk about today again though, which is Anna, the Abyss, and the Church of Observers and how they're connected to each other, and also Leonid and the recreated universe. The reason is because I want the It's a Land story to be over first, so after 2.8 drops, I will then make a new part 3 theory video to continue these 2, or else it's too much, Alright. Let's get started with Heaven's Reach and what it will look like. First of all, we've learned quite a lot about Heaven's Reach so far. We know that it's sitting on the mountains and was protected by a barrier or a dome of sorts until Nikki broke it in 2.5. We know that Heaven's Reach is a city of titans, built by the titans themselves, right before their disappearance. Not every titan went to Heaven's Reach though, some stayed on their earliest settlements such as Rockville and Coliseum areas, as we learn in 2.4. Being a titan city, Heaven's Reach will be massive, it will be big, proper gigantic. The streets are going to be big. The titans were so much bigger than Nikki even in her gigantified form, so something like a fountain in a town square could potentially look like a small pond to us in normal Nikki size. We also know that the titans were very advanced and had many unique mechanisms that we haven't seen yet, which makes me think that Heaven's Reach will be a steampunk aesthetic mixed with Greco-Roman architecture, something similar to BioShock Infinite. But it could also be super dark and empty ruins instead, although I will explain that thought in a bit. Besides all that, we also learned that 2.5, the Heaven's Reach is sitting on the mountains and that Wilhelm told us she cannot reach there with Sonara, her giant bird, because there are very strong, weird air currents around it. So perhaps Nikki will make a steampunk airship to reach there, or maybe revive the Daughter of the Kingdom mechanical bird, which, if you don't know her story, I'll also link that down below. I have a really detailed video that explains all about that, so I'm not going to repeat it here. Another potential way to enter Heaven's Reach could be a massive elevator from within the mountains. We have seen these in the Coliseum and also on the outposts. Maybe Heaven's Reach is actually a flying city, like they have built it to be mobile, so they could kind of like drive the city to whatever location they wanted, and they simply parked the city on the mountains to barricade it. Having an elevator underneath the city from within the mountain could explain how the Halley, Moffies, and Medal even entered Heaven's Reach before Nikki broke the barrier. Because of the size and the altitude of the city, I hope we'll be able to use a Sticky Claw and Gigantify in Heaven's Reach for the mobility. But I'm also really hoping that we get an airship of some sort, maybe some flying mount, even if it works only in that area. I think that because they've already tested flying and swimming mechanics with the Lung, Unicorn, Dragon outfits, as well as the Mother Show and the Bubble Zone in 2.7, as well as the Dragon statues in the Boneyard. So maybe we'll get some steampunk airships and maybe some steampunk-ish cable trains to walk around up and down. Cable trains in particular I think are very probable because that will be an easy excuse to explain why we can't just fly outside this new map everywhere. Other things that we learn is that inside Heaven's Reach, we should see Mori's giant water wheel, as well as many fountains, a bazaar, workshops with giant forges, as well as pottery clay vases, and potentially even docks for the mechanical birds and hopefully airships as well. Now, the important bit here, I think there is people there. And I don't mean just Moffies, I mean actual Titans. Everyone in Mirrorland believes the Titans went extinct, but they also believe the Heaven's Reach was destroyed on the Veilfall. Even Ian, the not-so-ugly dragon, tells us that with a lot of confidence. But now we know Heaven's Reach was not destroyed, and that Moffies and Medal have been there. So I'm hoping that Heaven's Reach is more lively than we may expect. However, there is one thing that could contradict that. And very unfortunately, I think it's highly probable because I don't see Infold doing real living breathing Titans for us to interact with. And the reason is why the city was even domed in the first place. Initially, I thought that they domed their city to protect themselves from the Parkia volcano being set off due to the Veilfall, or even from the Veilfall itself. But now we know the timeline isn't quite right for that. And we also know for a fact that Titans actually survived the Veilfall even though some of them were outside of Heaven's Reach. So why did they barricade the city? So one of my biggest theories that I have mentioned in many last Fury videos is that I believe Titan King has the other half of the mark of the cycle, the half that Saint Tess won. I'll talk a little bit more about this theory again in a bit, but before I go into that, follow me into the Lululand. In 2.5, we finally learn about the mark of cycle. It is Akaros' powers when he fades, and that the Saint Tess was born with it, which points out to her being his new cycle, or a new reincarnation of sorts. But unfortunately, Saint Tess only has half of the mark, and she needs the full, complete mark to take over the cycle of life and unmend the Parksolian souls. So, Delulu time. Let's assume that yes, Titan King does have the mark of the cycle, and that Moffies wants Akaros' power for some reason we don't know yet. When Titan King died, she should have gone to the Boneyard and be reincarnated. And her reincarnation should be born with the mark. So, if I was Moffies and I had the Titan King under my watch, I would try to stop Titan King from reincarnating, so I don't lose sight of where the heck the mark is. So maybe, just maybe, the dome was actually to stop the souls from leaving Heaven's Reach and moving towards reincarnation. And that's why the mark is still trapped in there. So I think that either Titans are still alive, or Titans are all dead and unable to reincarnate, which means Heaven's Reach could be instead a dark, spooky city with souls and ghosts everywhere. That would also be pretty cool, kind of like Philomia Castle or the Soul Tide Dungeon, although I personally would prefer a Bioshock Infinite steampunk city instead. On the debut trailer though, we can see Nikki floating around gigantic ruins that are much bigger than her, which could be an early roadmap plan for Heaven's Reach, or more probably the Umbrazo's expansion since it has Gothic architecture instead of Greco-Roman. Lastly, for the outfits, I think that we may get a Moffies-inspired outfit with a Titan King-inspired outfit, as well as an Airship pirate, maybe as a free full star, so we can explore the new map with. But overall, Heaven's Reach should be the final region of Italand, and the story should conclude so Nikki can move towards a new nation in 3.0, but more on this later in this video. Now, for some quick guesses about Italand's story and things that I personally hope to see, there is nothing too big here, just some disconnected thoughts. 2.5 was obviously very centered around Acheros, the Perxolians, and Medell, and now that that's out of the way, we only have the Saintess, Mophis, and the Titans to learn about. But there is one character that we keep seeing in the story that keeps coming back, but we still don't know anything about: Wilhelm. And I think that Wilhelm has ties to Heaven's Reach that we are yet to discover. That's the whole reason why she's even here, and she has been quite shady about it as well. I think perhaps she is a descendant of the Titans, or she is a threat to Empire of Light, since Empire of Light was founded by one of the 8, Vincere, who not only has an Italian name, but also similar physical appearance to the Titan King. In previous videos I talked about the Daughter of the Kingdom and how she could have been the Titan King herself or her daughter. I really hope we find her ghost or more mentions to her revolution, but I imagine that they will leave that on lore books and things like that instead of giving too much focus. Titan King has a light hair streak and a golden mark in her face. At this moment, in this cutscene that we saw in 2.0, it's already daytime, and the cultists aren't really here right now. In Nikki's flashback, we see the Titan King striking the dragon. However, we also see the chains breaking. I believe the Titan King, especially if she's the daughter of the kingdom, may have freed the dragon or killed the dragon so they can reincarnate. Now, let's say the cultists want the golden mark complete. If they have completed the mark for nefarious reason, the dragon and the Titan King may have cooperated to break the mark in 2 pieces. Perhaps the Titan King amazing powers were used to break, because she can break stuff apart. Maybe she could have broken the mark itself. So the cultist would not be able to get the full mark. Because why was the mark split in the first place? If the Titan King wanted the full mark, why didn't she just grab all of it? So maybe the dragon gifted half of the mark to the Titan King and kept the other half so it could reincarnate. Then Titan King strikes the dragon so it could go to reincarnation instantly without Mophis being able to complete the whatever ritual they were trying to do. Of course, the Titan King could be fully evil instead and not related to the Daughter of the Kingdom. However, their story and the mechanical bird elements on both of them makes me think that they are in fact related, and that things are not really what they seem right now. But I'll link the Daughter of the Kingdom video down below, so I don't repeat myself again. Now, for the dragon on the scene, during update 2.0, I actually thought that this was Acheros. But in 2.5, we learned that the Saintess is actually a dragon herself. We didn't know that. So now I think the dragon here is the Saintess, not Acheros. Both Acheros and Saintess have the forehead mark and the mark of the cycle, but I imagine only the Saintess would have such big fluttery eyelashes similar to the Sith. Also Nikki, and as far as we know, Acheros was already out of the picture at this point. On the 12 Young Dragons diaries, we learned that the Saintess was raised by Acheros on his final days at the top of the mountain. The Saintess as a child would go down to the boneyard and meet Perxolians disguised as a person. She was shocked that the Perxolians struggled with faring souls, and for her it was so easy. Acheros was growing weaker and weaker though, until one day he left. The Saintess asked herself how long this time will be, because the last time that he left, he took so long the dragons disappeared. So this is really important to the timeline. The dragons, so Acheros gave dragons the task, then the dragons all went extinct, merged with the Perxolians, and then Acheros came back just to raise the Saintess, and then he left again. So he entrusted the Boneyard and the Guardian of the Cycle to the Saintess. And again, we also learned that the Saintess was in fact a true dragon, not a Perxolian. She also never met her mom. She thinks her mom abandoned her before she hatched. But I think that all of this points out to Saintess being Acheros' next cycle. She probably then died at the chains moment here and reborn in the Mother Shroom 1000 years later. Perhaps having only half of the mark slowed her rebirth. Perhaps the barrier of the dome also slowed it. The issue here is that before Akaros fades away, he spoke these words to the Saintess. You must stay here no matter what calls to you. So I think Heaven's Reach is actually a trap, and with the help of Nikki, the Saintess will finally succeed her mission. So they're basically walking into the trap, but Nikki's here, so it will be fine. So again, I think Mophis, who we already know have possession of amazing technology, may have domed the city to prevent Titan King's soul from being reincarnated at the Boneyard. But what the heck does Mophis even want? I think they want to stop the reincarnation cycle. Akaros says, Death's eternal night may meet the dawn of living light. So night represents permadeath. Thought of the Kingdom Revolution was during the night, and it only succeeded at dawn. Mophis may be a point mortis, which means death, and moths, which are night creatures that are attracted to the light, like moths to a flame. So it makes sense that Mophis wants to resurrect the Titan King, get half of her mark, get the other half from Saintess, and stop the cycle altogether. And my last guess is about the story with the Shroomlings. This was actually suggested by someone on my stream. I forgot completely who pointed this out, but I fully second it and I wanted to include in this video. So this is not my personal theory, it's from someone else, but I thought it sounded really cool. We learn from Adele that the Shroomling souls are merged. They do not reincarnate, which means they won't be affected by Soul Rift. What if Saintess and Shroomlings could take over the Fairy of Souls so the Parksolians could finally have peace and have their souls unmerged? That could explain why we still have one area to build in Itzaland. Perhaps that's in the Boneyard, an area for the Shroomlings. Now, since we are in the Lululands, let's continue with my most far-fetched theory. The Infinite Nikki timeline and what I believe is their goal to fix the problems caused by 1.5. Stay with me, okay? I strongly recommend my lore recap videos for this one, but I'll try to give you some of the key information here. In Update 1.0, Nikki is dragged to Mirrorland by the Threads of Reunion outfit. She meets Anna, who gifts her the Heart of Infinity before being killed by the Abyss. Then, in Update 1.5, we see a memory of Nikki waking up in the Sea of Stars and being met by the Seer, who says she failed to save Mirrorland many times and keeps having to reset the time again and again. That's how we learn that Nikki is actually trapped in a time loop. In Update 1.8, we learn about another loop that has already concluded, the Dungeon Realm. In that loop, Nikki, who was called Artist Cat there, used the Heart of Infinity to create a whole realm, the Aniimo and the Ink Pool. Those had to be built upon for 1,000 years until eventually Dungeon Realm became real and finally overlapped with our Nikki of our loop. So these two loops only overlapped because they spent 1,000 years building the Aniimo. In Update 1.11, we find a vase that features Nikki and Momo in Itzaland but 1,000 years ago. This means we have two main possibilities. The Nikki from the vase is from another loop. That's an easy excuse, however, they will need to explain why the loop is overlapping with our current loop, because Dungeon Island has their own excuse. Their loop only overlapped with ours because of the Aniimo and the Ink Pool that was building off for 1,000 years. Dungeon Island is only accessible through the Sea of Stars, which is outside of time and space. So it will be complicated for them to excuse a loop overlapping with another without a really good explanation. Okay, so follow me, because the second possibility is crazy, okay? Be warned. Key information here is, in Dungeon Realm loop, Nikki started her journey 1,000 years ago. She did not start on the current year of 1002. Then she failed and Dungeon was created. So what if actually Nikki always starts her journey 1,000 years ago? That's the start of every single loop. Hear me out. Nikki is kidnapped by Threads of Reunion, sent to Anna, who sends her over to the Stylist Guild. But 1,000 years ago, right before the Veil Fall, Nikki adventures through Florowish and then Itzaland. She meets Akaros and Weirly. But then the Veil Fall happens. She is sent to the Sea of Stars, which is outside of time and space. After talking to the seer, she's sent back to the Stylist Guild, the same one. However, now it's been 1,000 years, similar to Narnia. The Stylist Guild is in another location now. We already know, confirmed, that the many time loops and resets have been messing with her memories. So what if Nikki has been to Italand? Because the time travel actually already happened, she just forgot about it. When we talk to the dead dragons in 2.5, we can see actual flashbacks of Nikki talking to the dragons because she did. She just forgot about it. All in this same loop, our current loop. So it's not a different loop overlapping with ours. Instead, it's the same loop where we just time traveled already. The time travel already happened. We didn't see it happen, but it already did. This would actually fix all of the 1.0 and 1.5 inconsistencies, and Threads of Reunion would still be fully canon like they promised. They also would not need to model dragons, nor titans, nor acros, because I know they are probably too lazy to do that, because all of that already happened. So it can be simple flashbacks instead of actual areas for us to play through. If Nikki always starts her journey 1,000 years ago, and we simply time travel this time, that also explains the suspicious statue in the memorial ruins. It looks like Nikki, but although the statue is in great condition, someone destroyed its head almost on purpose. Perhaps there is a Nikki head holding a Momo in that statue instead. This would also explain Providence Memorial's story, where Nikki has already met Akeros and baby Wills alive, which explains her connection and her sense of familiarity to the Saintess, who is part of Akeros. I hope this made sense. If you have any questions, please ask me. Now I'm gonna give you some rest from my insanity and we'll talk about more concrete stuff, okay? First, the Threads of Reunion. At the moment, we have two main possibilities for the Threads of Reunion reintroduction. Either it was used for the time traveling in Italand, which could make sense since we have the stars on the Heart of Infinity, the lunar astrolabe Eureka, and also the church elements with the night boots, which all fit in with the Titans era. Or Threads of Reunion could appear in Cicia. In Update 1.10, we learn about the evil company Threadstar, who's been in search of a miracle outfit that can grant wishes. We learn that Threadstar ended operations after a fire in their building. But in 1.10, centuries later, we find pieces still working towards their goals. So there is a chance the company is not actually over. Then we have an outfit yet to be released called Threads of Reunion, whose ability is unconfirmed. And it's a burnt dress. A far-fetched clue is also that Threads of Reunion has brought Nikki to Mirrorland. Mirrorland is a land of wishes and miracles. Flower-Wish God, the Wishing One, is also very similar to Leonid from Shiny Nikki and Love Nikki, which I'll explain in the future video. So maybe Threads of Reunion ability is granting wishes, hence why Nikki was brought here. Perhaps the resetted Giovanni's wish was actually taken by the outfit instead of the Wishing One, who's the most incompetent and useless god ever. So perhaps Threads of Reunion is the miracle outfit that Threadstar is looking for, and we will craft it again in Cicia instead. Would be amazing if the dress is all burned because of the fire that destroyed them, but then the Fine Evolution alternative maybe has like the full dress, not burnt. That would be so cool. Then we have my favorite topic, Underwaa maps. Yes, I'm going to die on this hill. We will have underwater maps in Infinite Nikki, and I only get more confident each update. You never stop hearing me talk about this. I won't repeat myself entirely because I've already talked so much about this, but super quick summary. The dragon statues in the boneyard, the Mothershroom Woods, and the bubble zone in 2.7 are perfect for Underwaa mechanics. Cloud Loon Chroma Deer test flying and swimming mechanics. Rippling Reverie and Tide of Tears test water textures and movements. The Mossy Forest and Afternoon Underwater prop that has absolute perfect water physics. We know they test features in small scale first to then implement them in the future, so all of these are great indications of a future underwater map. And now my favorite clue, the bubble hat, which just confirms to me of my main theory about Whaleport space station having underwater maps. So let's talk about this, 3.0 and where we are going next. I think personally that we have three very probable options for 3.0. Whaleport, Cicia or Heartcraft's capital, and a random small nation, maybe one that belongs to Empire of Lights or any other nation really. For Whaleport, we have had so many clues so far, multiple quests directly mentioning Whaleport and giving us tons of background information about their culture, such as quests in Italy and the Boneyard Cuisine questline, which talks about a robot that's from Whaleport. Again, all the zero gravity areas such as Mothership, Bubble Zone, and everything that I just mentioned on the underwater section of this video. And also my beloved bubble hat, which confirms to me that Whaleport Space Station will be sci-fi but also underwater themed. We have many indications of that. For example, the bubble hat looks like a bubble to breathe underwater, but it also looks like an astronaut helmet. Or maybe even a diver helmet. It's just perfection. Our only mermaid dress, which is very sci-fi, has very metallic holographic details. Underwater movement and zero gravity movement are the same, up and down, left and right. The name being whale, port, space station, so water, as well as the Sea of Stars, which is a separate area but also mixes the water and space elements, as well as being able to see water texture in the official art of the nation, which to me means that this smaller orca area is with robots and zero gravity, while the big whale may be water map, which also explains why Nikki cannot swim just everywhere in the entire world. And the sea gigantes phenomena, where the lack of oxygen causes animals to reach gigantic sizes underwater in the real world today. And where else do we have a lack of oxygen? In the space, where giant whales or giant planets can all fit in. The black hole in the sky of the Boneyard, which is in space and is also filled with water, and the debut trailer, which could be a sort of roadmap for the updates. We just had the gigantify ability for its land, so perhaps the next step is the spaceships. However, I do think it's a little bit too early for Whaleport. I think Whaleport could be 4.0, not 3.0. I'd love it to be free. Like, seriously, I would love it. But I don't want to overhype myself, to be honest. However, if Heaven's Reach has flying mounts of some sort, I would be more confident about Whaleport being early, so who knows? We need to wait for 2.8 to know. Then we have Cicia. Like I mentioned earlier, Threads of Reunion could be directly related to Cicia, so it would be great timing to head over there now. We also have Aka, who left Florowish to study in the Cicia Academy. All the many mentions to the port, which is now closed, and we are just waiting for the boat to open to go over there. And also the 1.10 questline, which revealed tons of information about Cicia, how big the city was, the theater culture, the Fred Star, and potentially Threads of Reunion return. So the Cicia setup is there, just like Whaleport. And we have a third and most probable option, a random small nation that belongs to whatever, like Empire of Light, Star Hail, Twin Moon, could be anything. It could be a small nation that explores the Empire of Light War, or maybe a winter snowscape Linlung sub-nation, or maybe even an easy to expand from Italy and Terra Alliance sub-nation. It could be anything. And this is for no particular reason other than the fact that we are only in Italand because of a random vase that they made up 30 days prior to its release. So I think overall Cicia would be very easy to develop, but I would lose my mind if it's Whaleport, and I think it's more probable to be just a random small nation that we can't predict. And that's all. I hope you enjoyed my theories today, and if you have anything you'd like to share or to add, please let me know down below. And of course, I will post a lore recap again as soon as I'm able to, so you can enter 2.8 with a fresh memory. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all of the members and patrons who support the channel and make these videos possible. And see you on the next one.
Ryan Little.